yet still fresh.
Today we're ranking everything regarding the Final Destination movies. We're going to rank all 6 films based off of their 3 key elements: their premonitions, their characters, and their kills. Now let's rank these movies 3 ways from Sunday. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Kicking off this ranking, let's start off talking about the premonitions. In last place, and certainly least, is The Final Destination. The McKinley Speedway disaster is a really cool concept, but just not executed very well. There's really no anxiety-fueled setup. We start this movie already at the spot of the disaster, which is its first fatal flaw. The characters suck, but we'll get to that in a minute, and the kills are some of the worst this series has to offer. They've been a subject of scrutiny on this page lately based on their shoddy VFX work and also the very goofy sound effects. Next up is Final Destination 5 with the North Bay Bridge collapse. This one just goes so low by default. The concept is there with the anxiety of going over a long bridge, but the kills are too digital at times to really take them seriously. I love the actual kills we get to in Final Destination 5, but there is something about this opening scene where nearly every kill just looks off. The one I really like is David Koechner getting sprayed with the hot tar. That was awesome. But Peter getting that pole through his face? Ugh. In 4th place is Final Destination Bloodlines. The Skyview Tower collapse easily has some of the best premonition deaths on this entire list, but I don't feel like it hits on a general anxiety or irrational fear as much as the other 3 scenes yet to come. I will say this one sets itself up way better than the last 2 though. That's another big plus here. I love that sequence where Iris is terrified to get into that very tall elevator that is already jam-packed with people. I felt a little bit of that anxiety rush right there. I would not want to get in that elevator. While that does make me feel a little nervous, ultimately this opening scene is to showcase a bunch of really cool kills and set up the rest of the story, of course. Aptly placing in 3rd is Final Destination 3. The child version of myself would have ranked this in 1st place because I was terrified of roller coasters. While the actual deaths that happen during this premonition don't look great, this scene is so effective in making the audience feel the same fear as our lead character Wendy. The way it's shot makes the Devil's Flight coaster seem way more daunting, and of course the Tony Todd voiced Devil out front helps out with that a bit.
You can run, but you cannot hide.
In 2nd place is the original Final Destination. I might be in the minority on this one, but I feel like the brilliance of the original Final Destination is in its simplicity across the board. There might not be any elaborate deaths like the rest of the premonitions on this list, but it just hits on the simple fear of something going wrong with the plane that's taking off. It either throws our characters out of the sky or burns them alive. I still think one of the scariest visuals in this franchise to date is Alex Browning catching on fire and just burning alive in his seat, not being able to do anything. And then it immediately cuts to the guy waking up in a cold sweat. I mean, that's insane. What a way to start your movie. Never put this one on before a flight. And of course, in 1st place is Final Destination 2. I mean, come on. This scene captures everything you could possibly want in an opening premonition to one of these films. It's based on what is, in my opinion, the most relatable fear a general audience member might have, which is simply a highway accident, something that literally happens all the time. On top of that, it has some very over-the-top deaths. I never drive too close to a log truck or really any big truck that has a bunch of shit strapped down to it because of Burke's death here. The gallons of blood shooting out of the back of the car with that log make it one of the gnarliest kills in film history. This is easily my first pick when it comes to the premonitions. So here's how I'd rank this series based on opening premonitions. Inducing anxiety was a big factor in determining how I'd rank it this way, although some of the other ones towards the bottom definitely had more elaborate kills. Really, the only opening premonition I'm not crazy about in terms of execution and concept is the 4th film. Besides that, almost all of these movies have some sort of merit. Today's video is sponsored by myself? Not only do I have some gnarly shirts and stickers to show off your love for horror films, but I also just released a summer collection of shorts, swimming trunks, and dad hats. The thing that rocks about my Fourth Wall store is their merch is actually really nice and doesn't fade after a couple of washes, like some YouTuber merch out there. This embroidered Chicken Man beanie is honestly the nicest one I own. I mean, listen to that. And I just ordered the new Instead of Having Friends I Have Horror Movies shirt too. Also, if you're a channel member or Patreon supporter of this page, you just got a 10% discount code to use at checkout. So make sure to pick something up from there, and everything from the summer collection is going to be here until September 1st. You have only until then to pick up the swim trunks, which is admittedly a pretty long time. I'm giving you guys a couple of months on this one. I mean, heck, it's not even summer yet. Check it out by clicking on the link in the description below. Now back to the video. Next up, let's rank these characters. It should come as no surprise that the Final Destination is once again at the bottom here. Almost every character in this ill-fated fourth entry is a major douchebag, especially Carter and Hunt. I will say this movie effectively develops characters who you enjoy watching die, but it's not a first for this series at all. By entry number 4, you need to switch it up, man. I do have a ton of love for George, however, who delivers one of the funniest lines in the franchise in this film. I can't put a clip of it in this video for obvious reasons, but if you know, you know. Also, this is the only Final Destination film not to feature Tony Todd in one way or the other, so of course it ranks at the bottom in terms of characters. In 5th, and I know I'm gonna get some hate for this one, is Final Destination 3. I am so sorry, but I have a good reason. Wendy Christensen is easily one of the best leads in this entire franchise. There is no doubt about that. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead's commitment to this character in a Final Destination sequel is kind of insane. Mad kudos to her. But unfortunately, that's where my praise for this entry stops character-wise. Everybody else falls into typical tropes of thousands horror films, and I just don't have a lot of love for them. They're on par with Wrong Turn sequel characters pretty much, and that's a pretty low sync for a big theatrical franchise like this one. In 4th place, and this one really breaks my heart if I'm being honest, is Final Destination 5. I hate ranking this one so low because the tragic twist at the end of the 5th film makes me love our main protagonists, Sam and Molly. But they're unfortunately suffocated by some really underwhelming side characters. PJ Byrne plays yet another douchey sleazebag in this franchise, which at this point is a quintuple beat. Olivia Castle has an amazing death, but only has one personality trait, which is she wears glasses, and David Koechner's comedic abilities are mostly wasted here. Tom Cruise lookalike Miles Fisher does a pretty incredible Patrick Bateman impression during this film, which makes for a great secondary antagonist, but ultimately this is a case of the bad outweighing the good. Taking home the bronze medal is Final Destination 2. I really love the dynamic between Kimberly and Thomas working together to prevent everyone's death here, and that's only emphasized by the return of Clear Rivers. This film might have taken home the silver if Alex Browning wasn't killed off screen by a very stupid brick. Final Destination 2, however, is another situation where I feel like the bad just outweighs the good a little bit. The side characters are so lackluster in this sequel. Evan, Kat, and Eugene are such stereotypical horror characters who are fated for death with their obvious flaws, but we do get one of the most eccentric William Bloodworth appearances here, which again gives this film a big boost. I'm also not a fan of this film trying to explain that the deaths of the Flight 180 survivors saved these characters from fatal incidents before the Route 23 pileup. It feels really convoluted to me, and thankfully the third film would course correct and make it more just like a random thing that premonitions can happen to anybody. That is way scarier. In 2nd place is the original Final Destination, and it's literally for one big reason. Every character here has a really interesting purpose. Everyone who is supposed to die treats Alex Browning differently. Miss Luton is terrified of the student she once tried to protect. Todd tells Alex that he can't hang out with him anymore because his dad blames him for the death of his brother. And of course, Clear Rivers wants to make sweet, sweet, passionate love to him. Jokes aside, all of these reactions show a clear scope of the very bizarre situation that's unfolding here. I also feel like this original Final Destination gets the whole survivor's guilt thing down better than the rest of them, and that's emphasized in all of these character reactions I'm talking about here. Easily taking the gold here, though, is definitely Bloodlines, because this film doesn't have to rely on creating a bunch of asshole characters to then die in very grisly ways. It's literally the only film we have talked about that didn't have to do that. I actually cared about the entire Campbell family, albeit they do have their flaws. At the end of the day, though, they're not the literal scum of the earth, like Carter in the 4th film. That guy. I was genuinely rooting for them to succeed, and that hint of optimism is swiftly snuffed out by this film's abrupt ending. It's cynical and maybe even heartless, but that's what this series is all about. The juxtaposition of having a very fun, screamy tone with some truly tragic events occurring on screen. Bloodlines hits the best of both worlds in that department. So here's how I'd rank the franchise by characters. I ultimately based this ranking on who I enjoyed hanging out with the most across the runtime of each film. Their deaths didn't play a factor here because that's what what we're ranking next. Alrighty, let's finally rank those kills. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but for the third and final time, in dead last is the Final Destination. The PS2 loading screen level of effects in this film make for some of the worst in the entire franchise. Looks like I'm watching a video game cutscene rather than a feature film. A diamond in the rough kill scene here, though, is at Taggart Theaters, where the character of Lori is sucked into the gears of the broken escalator. It might be a top 10 death in this entire series, even though the rest of these are total dog water. Okay, enough on the Final Destination. In 5th place is Final Destination 2000. The original Final Destination film doesn't necessarily have a focus on showcasing really elaborate and insane kills like this franchise would go on to do. It's sort of like the original Saw in comparison to that franchise. Like, if we ranked the Saw movies based on their traps, I'd probably put the original towards the bottom as well. This is another movie that has a diamond in the rough kill, however, with Terry getting hit by that bus. It's a crazy out of nowhere jump scare that sent me the first time I saw it. This movie also gets some major props from me for its use of practical effects. I love Billy getting his head chopped off by that random piece of scrap metal underneath the train. But ultimately, when it comes to this franchise, I need more than just the kills looking good. The concepts explored in the sequels showcase what this series is really meant for. I literally changed this one last minute, and I may grow to regret it, but in 4th place is Final Destination 3. The third film has one of my favorite kills in the series, which is of course the Valley Girls getting burned alive in those tanning beds. I also really dig Frankie Cheeks getting that engine like cutting out the back of his skull. That's disgusting. But there's also some of the worst kills of the franchise here too. Lewis' death is easily one of the worst in terms of execution here. This looks like a Mortal Kombat fatality, and I do not mean that as a compliment. Ian McKinley getting crushed by that sign is also pretty rough too. I'm not a digital effects hater. They can look good, but they just don't here. The downfall of this film is when things are done practically, they do look good, so it's a shame when something looks like I swapped Final Destination 3 and Bloodlines at the last second because I think Bloodlines truly deserves the bronze medal. It is easily the best use of digital effects in this entire series. Although Julia's death is a tad disappointing in that department, nearly every other use of VFX is done very well. I found myself forgiving some of the CGI and VFX in this movie a lot more because of the cartoonish tone. I feel like that's perfectly encapsulated in the MRI scene as well, which many are citing as the best kill in this entire thing. It's totally heightened because there's no way something would go down like that in real life, but it ends up being the rule of cool, man. All the pieces of the wheelchair poking through Eric's chest, and it's also a reference to the Final Destination 5 poster. I mean, what's not to love there? In 2nd place is Final Destination 2. The first sequel is the best use of practical effects in this entire series, which is why it ranks so high for me. There is a lot of gore candy in this movie, which is absolutely what pushes this one up so high, but I especially love the sequence where Kat gets that pipe blown into the back of her head because the airbag goes off, followed almost immediately by Rory getting cut in half with all the barbed wire. That 1-2 punch of a disgusting sequence may be the best in this entire franchise. Unfortunately though, the first use of truly awful digital effects is present in this film with the explosion that takes out Clear Rivers. Also, and I hate to harp on this one again, but I have to subtract points in the kills department considering that they killed one of the coolest characters in this entire franchise off screen with a brick. I know Devon Sawa couldn't be in this movie because of a scheduling conflict or whatever, but it still sucks. I want to amend my tier list video that I put out a couple weeks ago. That's the worst one. I hate that kill. And this might be a smoking hot take right here, but in 1st place is Final Destination 5. While the visual effects don't look the best in this one, especially during the premonition sequence, I feel like Final Destination 5 has the most elaborate and effective kills in the entire series. I guess I'm at the point where I've seen enough horror movies and bad effects that I can kind of just excuse it now. If they make me feel something, they've won me over, and Final Destination 5 has me freaking out with most of its kills. Candace breaking her entire body on the mat after a bad flip, Olivia Castle getting a laser to the eye during a failed LASIK surgery, oh my god, and Isaac falling off that massage table with those pins in him makes me cringe. Another reason I think this one deserves the top spot is because of the tragic twist ending, where we get the first time in franchise history where 2 character deaths have have really made me upset. Sam and Molly genuinely thought they made it out of this one alive. Being versatile in the emotions you can elicit with character deaths goes a long way for me. Final Destination 5 takes home the gold, baby. So here's how I'd rank this series by its kills. It really came down to what stood out the most rather than how good something looked to me. So how would you rank all 6 of these movies by their premonitions, characters, and kills? Let me know down in the comments below. Hey everybody, before we wrap up today's ranking video, please make sure to subscribe to this channel for more horror movie updates and goofy ranking videos just like this one. Thank you for watching the Final Destination 6 updates, and hopefully 7 gets announced here soon. Also check out my gaming channel GullGotha. We're about to play some DBD and Alien Isolation over there, so make sure to subscribe if you like horror video games. Thank you all again for watching, please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.